Hey guys, welcome to the video. So why is Python so popular in 2020? In the last few years, you've seen Python's popularity just spike up like crazy. Why is that the case? This video is sponsored by Proxy Crawl, which offers a set of tools to make crawling and scraping websites easy and accessible without getting blocked, thanks to their artificial intelligence. They offer crawling and scraper APIs, crawlers, lead finders, proxy back connects, and more. All that at a very competitive price with an excellent 24/7 customer support. Forget about blocks, proxies, CAPTCHAs, as that is something from the past thanks to Proxy Crawl tools. They've created a coupon for us that you can use to get an additional 5,000 requests for free, no card required. The coupon is Stefan_Mischuk, and it will allow you to start testing their crawling and scraping services for free. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, Python is just an incredible language that everybody thinks is amazing, especially compared to Ruby. Well, that's not the real reason. Don't get me wrong, Ruby is a bad language and Python is amazing compared to Ruby. But so is PHP, so is Perl. I'm just joking about Ruby, by the way. That's just a Ruby joke that people like to, anyway. No, the reason Python is becoming so popular and rising so quickly is because of the rise of machine learning, AI programming, and data sciences, big data. People need to do all this kind of work now, and because we have so much data, which a lot of the social media companies are collecting besides everybody else. So all this data has to be processed and parsed, etc. And Python is just a very good language to do that in, simply because Python has a lot of modules, has a lot of pre-built functionality, if you will. I'm trying to use non-nerd terminology. It has a lot of stuff built into it already that any programmer that can just leverage to get into that kind of work. So as a result, Python's popularity is skyrocketing. And I predict because of that, it's going to create, well, it is, I believe, creating a cascading effect where Python is going to become the more likely choice in other types of programming outside of AI, machine learning, data sciences. Why? Because you're going to have all these projects where they're leveraging Python for this, and they're going to say, well, if we're going to use Python for our AI, we might as well use Python and for the web stack. So they'll use Python with Django, which is the MVC, the most popular MVC framework for Python, or you could use Flask. Those are the two big ones. And so they're just going to go there, as opposed to maybe jumping into JavaScript Node or PHP Laravel, et cetera, et cetera. That is the primary reason why Python is gaining so much popularity, because of that AI, because of the rise of AI, machine learning, and data sciences. Does that mean that if you're studying Java or C# or PHP or Ruby or whatever, but you're done, you're finished? No. One of the common messages, one of the main messages rather on this channel that I teach is that the language is secondary in importance on a global scale. So if you, for example, learn how to code with JavaScript and you get out there and you find that the demand is in Python, then you're fine. You can pivot over to Python, because the hardest thing about learning how to code, how to program, is to learn how to program or code. It's kind of like learning how to drive a car. Once you learn how to drive a very fast Audi, to be able to drive a fast Porsche or a fast BMW, not a big deal once you learn how to do that. So it's the skill sets that you learn in one programming language transfer to another. One of the classic examples I like to give, I would rather hire somebody for a Python Django project who's got 5 years of JavaScript Node experience than hire somebody who's just started learning Python maybe 6 months ago. You get the idea. Experience as a developer, regardless of the language, is very transferable. It's almost 100% transferable, especially if you're doing the same type of work. For example, in the web stack, you can build web apps with Python, with JavaScript, with PHP, with Perl, with C#, with Java, with Ruby. You can do it always in other languages as well, with their related frameworks and tools around that. And they all can produce good work. They all can produce good work. One of the other things that I teach is that you should pay attention to market forces when you're looking at a particular language or framework you might want to work with. So just in case you don't know, a framework is basically a library of code. It's more than a library. It's a structure of code that developers use professionally to quickly ramp up a project or to actually build a whole project around it. It's the boilerplate code. It's the foundation code that people will use. So why do people come up with libraries or frameworks? Well, for example, in the web application development, whether you're using Python or PHP or C# or Java, whatever, they all have what they call web frameworks. And the web frameworks is just a collection of code in a very particular structure in a way that everybody understands. Now, over the years, they figured out how to properly build a web app. So instead of everybody reinventing the wheel as we used to do back 200 years ago when I first started running web apps, we've learned, okay, we have a standard practice, we know what works, and we build that out, we refine that, and then everybody uses that, and that has many advantages. Number one, if everybody's using the standard methodologies, when you bring somebody into a project, you say, I'm using Python Django, you know what's going on. It's an MVC framework. Even if you've done JavaScript and Express.js with a node on the back end, you'll be able to jump into Python Django fairly quickly because MVC is a structure, it's a way of structuring apps. MVC is used whether in the Python world, the Java world, the C# world, the PHP world, the Ruby world. They all use MVC, give or take. That's one of the advantages. You can quickly onboard people with one of these frameworks if you're using a standard framework. Another advantage is that when you're using a framework, it takes care of a lot of stuff that you have to do. All web apps, not all, but most will have authentication. So they come with authentication layers and modules, makes it easy. They all have database access layers, something called an ORM. So again, instead of you trying to reinvent the wheel in terms of figuring out how to access your database, you leverage the ORM built into the framework, and Bob's your uncle, you're up and running much more quickly. Finally, the framework code, you would imagine it has been worked on by many nerds and programmers over a period of time, could be months or years. So you know that the code base is pretty solid, pretty secure. Potentially, nothing's 100% bug-free, but it's going to be a lot less bugs than if you try to create your own from scratch. And I'll leave with this final lesson. Whatever you do as a developer, don't ever try to reinvent the wheel. First thing I do when a project comes to my desk, I say, okay, what is out there now so we can see what they've done and see if we can leverage what's already out there into the project that we want to build. Reuse is the first three rules of software development. Reuse other people's code, reuse other people's code, reuse other people's code. Writing from scratch is the last thing you do. Just like in real estate, the top three things that you look for in real estate is location, location, location. The top three things that you do as a developer is reuse, reuse, reuse. Anyway, we'll stop there. I'll see you in the next video.